right now, you are probably working harder than you did like 5 years ago.
Without a doubt, most people are.
Right. And you've got access to more productivity tools, more life hacks, and literally more information than any human being in history.
Yeah, the resources are endless.
But despite all that, you have probably never felt further behind. You're doing absolutely everything right according to the rules we were all taught. But there's this very specific, incredibly heavy feeling that you might be carrying around right now.
Like a deep bone-level exhaustion.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. A bone-level exhaustion. And the question we really need to answer today is why doing everything right is suddenly making us all so tired.
Well, it's because the effort to reward ratio that we built our entire lives around has, it's fundamentally fractured.
Fractured how?
People are trying to maintain a status quo that suddenly requires twice the physical and emotional energy it used to, and that's simply because the underlying mechanics of our economy and, our digital lives have quietly shifted underneath our feet.
Which brings us to the single source we are focusing on for today's deep dive. It's a short but honestly profoundly observant piece of writing titled The Quiet Shift.
It's a really fantastic piece.
It really is. Our mission today is to explore this collective phenomenon of quiet exhaustion, and we're going to unpack exactly why the old formulas for stability are failing us.
And we'll also look at the new, much calmer approach that's beginning to emerge from all this.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can understand how the world is changing, we have to establish the specific toll this current reality is taking on everyday people.
Right, because a lot of people are suffering from this fatigue completely in isolation.
Yeah, they think it's just them.
Exactly. They treat it as a personal failing. They think,
Yeah.
oh, I just need better time management, or I just need more grit. But what's fascinating here is that the source material reframes this entirely. It is not a crisis of the lazy.
Right.
It's a crisis of the responsible. It's a systemic shift in how the world operates.
Think about the old paradigm, right? Like the social contract we all basically signed. The promise was always that if you work hard, stay responsible, do the right thing, support your family, then life will feel secure.
You put in the inputs, you get the stability as the output.
Right. But the author of The Quiet Shift points out that the reality today is just, well, it's different.
It is. And what's crucial to understand is the nature of this change. It wasn't some sudden dramatic crash.
The sky didn't fall.
Right, the sky didn't fall. It's been more of a slow, insidious creep. Work just feels heavier. Money feels tighter, even if your actual income hasn't dropped.
It's like the baseline effort required just to exist and maintain your life has gone up.
Yeah.
The energy that used to just flow out of you naturally now requires you to actively psych yourself up every single morning.
Yeah, you have to convince yourself to keep pushing.
And that slow creep is honestly the worst part. Because if the sky falls, you know to take cover. You have an acute crisis to react to. But it makes me think of baking a cake.
Okay, and cake. I'm listening.
So, say you're using your grandmother's family recipe. You follow it perfectly, step by step. 2 cups of flour, 2 eggs, bake at 350 degrees.
A recipe you've used a million times.
Exactly. You've made it 100 times and it always worked. But suddenly, over the last few years, the cake keeps coming out completely flat. Every single time.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right. You stand there staring at the oven thinking you must have measured the flour wrong. You're blaming yourself. But is it the problem that we forgot how to bake, or is the concept of stability itself a moving target now? Is the oven broken, or has the atmospheric pressure fundamentally altered?
The atmospheric pressure has absolutely altered. The macroeconomic environment, the cost of attention, the saturation of the digital market, all of these variables change the pressure.
But the responsible person doesn't see that.
No, of course not. The responsible person naturally assumes the fault is theirs. When the cake comes out flat, they go buy a new whisk. They wake up an hour earlier to measure the ingredients more carefully.
Right. They try to outwork the flat cake.
Exactly. They don't immediately assume the fundamental laws of baking have altered. But what the source is synthesizing for us is that doing the right thing no longer yields the right results because the equation itself has been rewritten.
Which naturally leads people to start questioning the very foundation of their choices. You start asking, is the old path still the right path?
Or what does stability even look like now?
Right. But we can't talk about this psychological burnout without looking with the tool we stare at for, 8 hours a day?
The internet.
The internet. Because it didn't just reflect this real-world exhaustion, it essentially engineered it.
It really did. The digital world weaponized the anxiety of that broken social contract. For the past decade, as the source points out, the onless world evolved into an ecosystem driven entirely by urgency.
It just got so loud.
So loud. And that's because the algorithms that governed our attention rewarded extremity, speed, and volume. It was all about making the biggest promise as loudly as possible.
It feels like stepping onto a chaotic, high-pressure sales floor.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
You've got loud announcements, flashing lights, countdown timers, people shouting about limited-time offers. You can't even hear yourself think, let alone make a good, rational decision about what you actually want.
You're just reacting to the noise.
Yeah. The internet has just been this barrage of people screaming, "I have the shortcut to freedom," or "I have the secret system to wealth."
And underneath all that noise, this was driven by a fundamental shift in business models. The internet basically morphed into a giant numbers game.
It was all about scale.
Completely.
Yeah.
It became entirely about the volume of traffic, the optimization of clicks, the efficiency of sales funnels, and just hoarding human attention. And faster business models meant faster marketing, which meant faster content consumption.
And, I mean, let's be fair, some people did very well playing that numbers game. There were massive financial successes. We all saw the screenshots of the Shopify dashboards to prove it.
Sure, some people thrived financially. But what was the hidden cost for the rest of us?
All right, let's unpack the mechanics of that. Because underneath all the excitement of those screenshots, there was this crushing pressure to move faster and to commit quickly. Why did it feel so exhausting to just scroll through a feed or check your email?
Because it hacked our biology. Human beings are simply not built to sustain a constant state of high alert urgency.
That's natural.
Highly unnatural. When you're constantly told that an offer expires in 10 minutes or that you're missing out on the gold rush of the decade, whether that was crypto or drop shipping or whatever, your brain actually enters a fight or flight state.
So your cortisol just spikes.
Yes, cortisol spikes. You are reacting to perceived threats rather than making strategic choices, and the digital world figured out how to keep the consumer in that state perpetually.
Wow. And the narrative surrounding it was incredibly toxic too.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you bought the course, ran the funnel, and it didn't work for you, the message from the experts was never that the system was flawed or that the market was just saturated.
Oh, right. It was always your fault.
Exactly. The message was always, you just haven't found the right system yet, or you aren't grinding hard enough. It frames systemic saturation as a personal failure. So you keep searching, you keep running frantically around that chaotic sales floor.
And that engineered a highly effective loop of anxiety and frantic action. You feel behind, so you take immediate action to soothe that anxiety.
But it's the wrong kind of action.
Right, because the action is driven by panic rather than clarity, it yields poor results. The poor results make you feel even further behind, which triggers more panic, and the cycle just continues until you hit that deep, bone-level exhaustion.
So how did everyday people respond to this loud, urgent digital world? By running as fast as they could, often entirely in the wrong direction.
And the author of the source material is very candid here about their own experience with this trap.
Yeah, they confess to falling right into it, following the programs, listening to the promises, and staying in these chaotic, high-urgency systems way longer than they should have.
Because they believed that persistence alone would eventually make everything click into place.
It's that crisis of the responsible person again.
Exactly. The logic is, if I just stick with it, if I just outwork the system, the math has to eventually work out in my favor.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let me push back on this for a second.
Go for it.
Because if you look at our broader cultural narrative, we're relentlessly told that taking massive action is the single most important step to success. Every motivational speaker says, just start, hustle, outwork everybody.
Right. Action is everything.
Yeah. So is the author actually saying that hustle and persistence can be a bad thing?
Not exactly. The author isn't saying that action is inherently bad or that hard work is obsolete. What they're arguing is that the sequence is broken.
The sequence.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you prioritize massive action over having clear intention, you end up building a ladder incredibly fast, only to realize you leaned it against the wrong wall.
Oh, wow. Building it fast against the wrong wall.
Right. They realized they were taking action before they truly had clarity. They were building complex things without fully understanding what they were building or why.
So it's like motion masquerading as progress.
Precisely. Frantic action is reactive. It's done just to alleviate the anxiety of feeling left behind. But productive action is deliberate. It's done to execute a well-thought-out plan. You can burn a lot of calories without actually moving forward.
And that's where the burnout comes from. People are just exhausted by the hype, the noise, the endless urgency. They're tired of feeling like they constantly need to reinvent themselves just to keep up with, like, a random shift in a social media algorithm.
People no longer want to build their futures on a foundation of pressure and confusion. They want something steadier. They want something more honest.
They don't want to be tricked by a countdown timer. They want to actually choose to act. Which brings us to this really fascinating paradox in the source material.
The technology angle.
Right. If noise and automated urgency caused all this exhaustion, what happens when a new technology arrives that makes creating noise practically effortless?
Yeah.
Obviously, we are talking about the rise of artificial intelligence.
And you would logically assume that AI would just make the internet an exponentially worse version of the loud era.
I mean, in terms of pure volume, it kind of has.
It has. But the paradox is that this technological boom is actually the catalyst that's accelerating the quiet shift. It is driving a massive return to human basics.
Okay, think about it like fast food.
I love a food analogy.
Well, AI-generated content is like fast food. It's cheap to produce, it's infinite, and it's literally everywhere. And because it's everywhere, the value of that generic fast food information drops to absolute zero.
It's completely commoditized.
Exactly. So because fast food is suddenly everywhere, a genuine home-cooked meal becomes a premium, highly sought-after luxury.
That's a brilliant way to phrase it. The scarcity has shifted fundamentally. Perfect sales copy and infinite content are no longer scarce. They are hyper-abundant. What is scarce now is believability.
Unfakeable human trust.
Yes. As the noise floods the internet, believable human perspective becomes vastly more valuable. A genuine lived experience is the premium luxury now.
And you can see it happening. The people who've been around the block, the experienced voices in the online world, they're completely pivoting. They are moving away from hacks and shortcuts.
They're talking entirely about building long-term trust, offering thoughtful guidance, and providing real value.
Because the most valuable currency on the internet used to be attention. Outrage, hype, clickbait, it didn't matter as long as it grabbed your attention.
But today, attention without trust is actually a liability.
Wait, a liability? How so?
Think about it. You can get 1 million views on a piece of AI-generated content, but if the audience doesn't believe there is a credible human being behind it, that attention will never convert into stability, influence, or revenue.
The model built on emotional pressure is just losing its grip. Consumers have adapted.
They have. And the source points out a specific demographic that is really driving this adaptation. People over 50.
Oh yeah, this makes so much sense. If you are over 50, you have lived through enough macroeconomic hype cycles.
You saw the dot-com bubble,
The 2008 financial crisis.
the pivot to video, the crypto boom.
Right. You have exceptional pattern recognition. You can smell when a system is relying on smoke and mirrors. You are naturally more cautious and reflective.
You're not going to be swayed by a 22-year-old shouting about passive income in front of a rented Lamborghini.
Exactly. Wisdom and restraint are becoming competitive advantages again. That demographic recognizes that the frantic pace isn't just exhausting, it's just highly inefficient.
They are demanding that the systems and creators they interact with actually prove their worth through honesty and transparency rather than artificial urgency.
So if we bring all these threads together, what the author calls the quiet shift is not just a trend in online marketing. It's not just a reaction to AI. It is a fundamental human shift.
It's a collective turning away from breathless chasing.
Yes, moving toward making intentional decisions based on real clarity rather than reacting to external pressure. And if you are listening to this right now and you've been feeling this shift yourself,
That deep exhaustion we talked about.
yeah, that reluctance to keep playing the loud game where the rules keep changing, the author wants you to know that you are not alone. And more importantly, you are not falling behind.
You aren't failing at the old game. You are simply recognizing that the old game is ending.
You're realizing that the next stage of your life and the digital world requires a completely different approach, a quieter, calmer, and much more honest one.
Ultimately, the future belongs less to the loudest, most aggressive voices in the room, and much more to the people who help others pause, filter the noise, and think clearly before they take action. Choosing clarity over speed is not a retreat.
No, it's not.
When the entire world is running frantically in the wrong direction, stopping to check your compass is actually a strategic advancement.
Stopping to check your compass is a strategic advancement. I love that. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over, building on all these mechanics we've unpacked today.
Let's hear it.
If the future truly belongs to those who help us think clearly, take a hard look at our modern educational and corporate systems. Do they actually teach us how to pause, reflect, and find that clarity?
That's a heavy question.
Or are they still entirely built to train us for the old, loud model of endless acceleration? Are they teaching us how to read the atmospheric pressure of the room? Or are they just telling us to keep baking that cake with a broken recipe faster and faster until we burn out? Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.